Now, the first reader that I'm going to welcome up here is Terry Batts. Now, Terry is a professional violinist. He studied cellist, excuse me. He performs with my wife, who's a violinist, and they perform together. But Terry has a degree in cello performance from Manhattan School of Music. He's performed with Broadway shows such as The King and I, Evita. He's performed at Radio City Music Hall with Stevie Wonder and other famous acts. And he went to Paris for 10 years, lived there for 10 years, and formed a group called Les Joies de la Musique, an association that promoted concerts with musicians of diverse nationalities. He returned to New York in the late 90s, and he and my wife form a duo, violin-cello duo called Gemini Journey. They performed here in August and will perform once again on March 30th of this year. But Terry has demonstrated a flair for writing satire, which we discovered during our get-togethers, and a custom that he introduced called Show and Share. And I'm honored to have Terry join us as the first presenter of spoken word event here at the Cornelia Street Cafe. Let's hear a warm welcome for Terry Batts. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernie. This is a personal essay on the subject of racial profiling. In the aftermath of the Trayvon Martin case, there has been a call for a dialogue on race and racial profiling. Well, for me, nothing could be more of a nuisance. In fact, race is the very last thing I want to think about. One of the reasons I have remained in the ever more costly Long Island City is that it is a post-racial community where I rarely have to be bothered with thinking about race. A New York Supreme Court judge recently ruled that the practice of stop and frisk is unconstitutional. Racial profiling was one of the major issues in the recent mayoral race. This subject has compelled me to reflect on how I have navigated my way through the minefield of profiling that I confront on a daily basis. Profiling isn't necessarily racist or malicious. It is simply sweeping one's eye over a person and in one split second drawing conclusions. I would like to share with you a potpourri of some of the various profiling I have encountered. I present to you the art of the profile. The profiling pooch. As I sat on the beach, shirtless, in the coastal town of Porto, Portugal, the cutest of dogs trotted up to me, lifted its hind leg, and began to pee on me. When I swirled around, to that dog's credit, he ceased midstream. In my full blackness, the poor dog must have mistaken me for a tree stump. Although that dog did profile me, I concluded he was sorry, and certainly not racist. The helpful but annoying profile. At the Met Museum, the ticket desk was manned by a bubbly, vivacious woman in a fluff sweater who could have been a Bryn Mawr graduate. When I handed her the full admission price, her eyes lit up, and with a broad, helpful smile, she asked me if I was sure I wanted to pay full price. I could pay less. I stared at her stone-faced and walked away. For a brief moment, I contemplated spying on her to see if she explained the Met's pricing policy to every guest. The helpful but hurtful profile. In a rush and famished, I popped into a deli on the Upper East Side off Madison. I ordered a ham and Swiss on whole wheat with lettuce, tomato, and mustard, pickles on the side. Instead of springing into action, the man behind the counter remained frozen. He looked me in the eye and spoke slowly as if he were explaining something to a toddler and said, "That's going to be an expensive sandwich." For a brief moment I considered walking out, but my stomach growled. Instead, I smiled and looked above his head, pointing to the huge pricing sign, and replied, "Sir, did you know your store shows all the prices right on that big sign?" His smile drooped, but he finally sprang into action to make my ham sandwich. A helpful, albeit bewildering, profile at the cinema. Having run out of traditional musicals, I have embraced Bollywood. My preference is for the sweeping historical epic where the Indian girl falls for the Paki guy, or the story of the boy who yearns for a girl above his station in a higher caste. When it was my turn at the multiplex ticket window, and I told the Indian woman behind the glass the name of the film I wanted to see, her hand started to move, then froze in midair for a brief moment before being firmly placed down on the counter. I thought I had mispronounced the film, so I tried again. Still, she remained frozen. She finally broke her silence and said, "Sir, it's a Hindi film." "Yes, it is," I concurred. She mulled this over and finally, concluding perhaps I wasn't mistaken, begrudgingly handed me a ticket. A profile on the Great White Way. It took a while, but I finally thought of the perfect gift for my friend Pedro, who had just gotten married. 2 tickets to the Tony Award-winning musical Avenue Q. When I arrived at the ticket window, before I can get a word out, the woman yelled out, "This is Q!" I stared at her blank-faced and she repeated, "This is Q!" I said, "Yes, it is." "Isn't that why your theater has the big title on the marquee?" A light bulb then lit up in her head. She apologized, saying that A Raisin in the Sun was playing in the theater next door, and she assumed I was in the wrong theater. The mean-spirited profile. One way to avoid being typecast in profiling is through the clever use of costuming and props. No one would dare question my standing if I hoisted myself up the stairs at Lincoln Center, swathed in full Giorgio Armani. When I'm in my running suit, however, I carry the New York Times, making sure the first page title marquee is in full view. One blustery winter day, I thought I was well turned out. I had on a full-length winter coat which billowed well below the knee. Although I had found this on the sale rack at Macy's, the coat could easily have been mistaken for one purchased at Bloomingdale's. I topped the outfit off with a scarf purchased in Saint-Germain, Paris, lovingly draped in the French style. I swept into the city center vestibule with a broad and generous smile, on an errand to pick up dance performance brochures from my niece. There was an older, well-dressed woman waiting for someone parked directly in front of the brochure rack. When I approached, instead of stepping to the side, she looked me in the eye, dismissed my billowing coat and scarf, and clenched her purse tight. Bitch. The helpful windfall profile. I cringed when I went to the parking lot after work and saw the big dent someone had left in the side of my car. The very next day, I spotted an envelope on the windshield. There was an anonymous note apologizing for hitting my car and not making an effort to contact me. Also in the envelope was $250. At first, I was elated. My heart sank when I remembered the last dent repair cost over $700. I was astonished when the estimate at the repair shop 2 blocks away from my apartment came in at only $250. It was both curious and miraculous. As I was leaving, the repairman asked me if I was from around here. I said yes, I'm in one of the new high-rises, to which he replied, "You working over there?" You see, in some cases, the profile can be a blessing. A profile on Sunset Boulevard. I was invisible. I was invisible. I was on vacation one summer in sunny California, and I was invisible. I guess I have no one but myself to blame. I was careless. I should have known better. My normal go-to tourist outfit consists of an oversized Hawaiian print shirt, and I carry a handful of tourist pamphlets, which I wave around. In the old days, I could seal the deal by hanging a camera around my neck, with the clincher being socks and sandals. When I hit the Boulevard last summer in khakis and flip-flops, I had planned to take a tour of the stars' homes of glamorous Beverly Hills. Tour vans were aplenty and lined the streets with their barkers unmercifully harassing every single pedestrian who passed by. That is, everyone except me. I walked up and down the block, up and down, back and forth. I was ignored. I didn't matter. I didn't exist. I was invisible. The profiling cabbie. Some of my orchestra students are embarrassed to take their instruments home because of peer pressure. I explain that in society, carrying a stringed instrument is a status symbol, a sign of high culture, intellect, and even wealth. I tell them the story of a violinist named Linda Steinberg, who had studied at the Manhattan School of Music. Although she has stopped playing, she continues to carry her violin case around town, using it as a fashion accessory handbag filled with cosmetics. Armed with her violin, head held high, she cuts a striking silhouette. This was the air I was striving to create when I hailed the cab, holding my cello. When seated, I threw my head back and said, "The Juilliard, please." The driver swung his head around and said, "Julie who?" Humbled, I said 65th and Broadway, please. En route, he asked, "What you got in there?" I said, "It's a cello." He thought about this and then asked me, "Do you play that, or did you steal it?" If you stole it, then that's okay, true. Finally, the Trayvon Martin profile. I certainly was not wearing a hoodie when I visited my friend in one of the storied pre-war buildings on West End Avenue. In fact, I thought I was quite dapper in my gray Hugo Boss sports jacket with matching slacks and a stylish pump. The young woman and I hit the elevator at the same time and pressed the button for the same floor. She seemed to smile at me. When we arrived at the 11th floor, I exited first so she wouldn't feel followed. As luck would have it, we both turned right and headed for the end of the hall. As I rang Gerald's bell, the woman froze 5 yards away, petrified in fear. Naturally, Gerald took forever to open the door, and I said to the woman, "Is everything all right?" She responded, trembling, "I'm sorry, I'm not comfortable." Magically, Gerald's door swung open. All I have to say about this is thank God I wasn't in Florida. Clearly, the woman felt in grave fear of bodily harm. Under Florida law, she would have been perfectly justified to stand her ground, take a pistol out of her purse, and put a bullet through my heart. The future of the profile. I should move. Long Island City, with its glittering, glowing glass high-rises, has become an enclave for the rich and uber-rich, with most residents under 30. The lineup in my garage is Audi, BMW, Mercedes, Porsche, Lamborghini, Rolls-Royce, and then we come to a beat-up Toyota Camry belonging to yours truly. I should move, but one of the reasons I have hung on despite the cost is because it is a post-racial community. I love the young residents in my building. They couldn't care less what color I am. In my neighborhood, race is simply something I never have to think about. The girls in my elevator hold the doors to make sure I get in. These young people represent a bright future. One can be hopeful that it will be a future where race won't matter at all. Thank you.
That was incredible. Thank you so much.